Hey, yo, how's it going? SixftHax here. Have for y'all today a very interesting video, I think, and it's a video that I would like to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions about. So, for those of you who are in the Draft League community, then let me know what you think about how Generation 8 leagues are going to be. So the more I've been thinking about how Gen 8 Draft Leagues are going to go down, the more I've started to think of how similar right now in 7th Gen Wi-Fi Draft Leagues and Showdown Draft Leagues are. Obviously, the big difference is the fact that Wi-Fi looks way better, the graphics are so amazing, and genuinely more fans lean towards Wi-Fi, obviously, because it looks better. And then Showdown, it's a lot easier and a lot faster to do games on Showdown. Personally, I don't mind doing either. The main reason I do mostly Wi-Fi leagues is because I know you guys enjoy them, but I myself do not mind doing Showdown stuff either. So the more I've thought about it, the more I've considered just how different draft leagues are going to be in Gen 8. So the main thing about Gen 8, obviously, that we know at this point is that there is not going to be every single Pokemon in Generation 8. Obviously, for Wi-Fi leagues, that really sucks. That's like the big, I don't want to say it's a nail in the coffin, but it's like, it's a pretty massive problem if you think about it. Because, for example, Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu leagues, some of them were around, some of them function, but they had a very limited pool of Mons, obviously, because they don't have access to all the other generation Mons. And then that makes me just think about, well, in Generation 8, what if there's not a giant move pool of Pokemon? What if it's like very limited to how it was in Let's Go? And obviously in Let's Go, you couldn't do like EVs, and there was like no choice items and all of that stuff. But obviously this time around, I'd like to assume that there are going to be choice items and just items in general, and EVs and all that, IVs as well, for when Generation 8 comes out. So that already makes it a little bit better. My hope is that there is enough Pokemon introduced in Gen 8. Like, yeah, we know we're not getting all the Pokemon, but if there's at least over like 300 Mons, then like 300-400, hopefully, like with the entire Pokedex that is going to be in Gen 8, whatever is allowed, whatever is not, hopefully it's big enough to where Wi-Fi draft leagues won't be too impacted by it. And another thing with that too is that because there's going to be all these limited things, if certain legendaries are not allowed, certain Uber Pokemon are not allowed, then that already takes a different aspect of draft league away, where certain leagues could do Ubers allowed to make it kind of distinguishable, kind of making it more of their own, essentially. But obviously in Wi-Fi, you're going to be taking that away from certain leagues if there's not a good amount of legendaries allowed. Now, I would like to think that they're not going to take out almost all of the legendaries. If anything, they could leave in all the legendaries and it's just the other like kind of mediocre Mons, or legendaries may be introduced through DLC. Honestly, I haven't looked too in depth into it, but I'm still kind of hoping that there will be some type of DLC thing that happens when the games come out so you can have new Pokemon, but I'll worry more about that later. Right now, I just want to focus on like my thoughts for this. But as I'm saying, like Wi-Fi in Gen 8 when it comes to draft leagues, I feel like things are going to be so limited to it. And see, that's the thing though, because like right now, as I mentioned earlier, Wi-Fi draft leagues and Showdown draft leagues, they're essentially kind of the same. It's just really the graphics, the animations essentially, that is typically different when it comes to certain draft leagues and stuff when Wi-Fi went on Wi-Fi or on Showdown. So with Gen 8 though, Showdown I think just gets such a huge boost, which in itself, if you really think about it, is actually really good, because maybe more people are going to be drawn towards playing Showdown draft leagues, because the thing about Showdown is that it's not going to be limited to potentially what will be limited on the Switch. And that's another real cool thing about this too, is that you know there's going to be a bunch of new players, new online personalities, new people just diving into this game, because it's the new Pokemon game. It's the first real Pokemon game on the Switch, and that is really awesome, because then that could also have some people interested to do Showdown stuff. Now, speaking of Showdown, I haven't really touched on it, I know, and that's mainly because I feel like I have more to say about Showdown than I do Wi-Fi, because even though Wi-Fi could be very limited with obviously the Galar decks, that's where Showdown just comes in. It's like, hey, we got all the mons, so you want to join some draft leagues on Showdown? Come join them. And obviously, again, it's much easier to do stuff on Showdown than it is to do on Wi-Fi. We've heard this before, I've said this plenty of times before as well. And the great thing, I guess it's kind of more of a hectic thing if you really think about it. Like, I'm not a commissioner, I don't think I would ever run my own draft league, but I had some buddies talk to me who run their own draft leagues, and they brought up some good points. Because a main thing about it is, like, how are you going to go about figuring out, is a Pokemon that is allowed in the Galar decks that can Dynamax? Are you gonna let every other single Pokemon from Gen 1 to 7 Dynamax? Is there even gonna be a button that lets you Dynamax them? Does that make them less valuable? Obviously in Gen 8 there's not gonna be Z moves or Megas, so are you gonna let Megas and Z moves be legal? Are you gonna let the new Pokemon use Z moves? Like, there's so many different things that need to be taken into consideration, and the more that I think about it, the more I really just realize that I really feel like in Gen 8, Showdown might actually be way better than Wi-Fi when it comes to draft leagues. But it's only in the sense that if you want more of the diversity, then you want to go on Showdown. Obviously, with you having to go on Showdown, you can't see all the beautiful move animations, you can't see all that fancy stuff. But on Wi-Fi, you get that. You get the Dynamax giant Pokemon, you get the evolutions, you get the moves, the animations, and all that. But then you don't have your favorite Pokemon in there. You don't have access to be as free as you want to be on Wi-Fi. And that's the beauty of Showdown. You have all these Pokemon in one potential draft. You can use Gens 1 through 8. Obviously, certain rules. I feel like Mega should be fine, Z-Move should be fine, Zenimaxing on anything, I don't know how that would work. But again, see, it's just trying to find a way to balance it all out, which I still think is really cool. And obviously, you guys can just say, well, I don't like the graphics, I'll be fine with the limited move pool. That's fine too. I'm just saying, for me personally, I feel like I would want to dabble way more in Showdown drafts if I'm able to choose from the entirety of every single generation. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to stop doing Wi-Fi draft leagues, because again, that's what you guys enjoy, and I enjoy them as well. So I don't mind the limited selection for when it comes to Wi-Fi, but when it comes to Showdown, just thinking about like all the new Pokemon, all the Pokemon that aren't, I guess, allowed in the regular, I was gonna say Alolan decks, Galar decks, they are gonna be allowed on Showdown. The potential combination of Pokemon cores that you can make, like how would a Dynamax Tapu Koko be if that's allowed? How would like a Z move Corviknight be? How much better would it be? That's another thing too. Like, if you allow these Galar 8 Pokemon to do Z moves, then you're gonna just make them so much better, and that could also just come down to having to choose different tierings between everything, because right now tierings for the most part are kind of the same. You can probably ask any draft league player who's kind of been around for a few months and they've done a couple drafts saying, oh, these Pokemon are typically in the same tier. Yeah, that makes sense. This being in this tier makes sense. But when it comes to Gen 8, then there's gonna have to be like a tiering for Wi-Fi potentially, and then a tiering for Showdown that'll be just completely different, because Galar Pokemon are gonna be able to Z-move on Showdown, but they can't Z-move on Wi-Fi. And even though it's just a Z-move, that is still a very crucial aspect to certain Pokemon. Z-moves just make Mon so disgustingly powerful. And then there's some Pokemon that are only good because of Z-move that could be tiered lower on Wi-Fi because they don't have access to that Z-move anymore, but they're still tiered highly on like a Showdown ladder. Now, some do point systems. I'm not a big point system fan. I guess a point system, I mean, I would still assume they have like different values for Pokemon when it comes to Showdown and Wi-Fi. I don't know. I feel like I didn't want this to be like over 10 minutes, but I feel like I've talked so much about it, because the more I think about it, the more I'm realizing that things could actually be pretty crazy. And the more I'm really starting to see that if Showdown does become popular, that not only is good for the community itself, but it could also encourage those really good Showdown players that aren't that well known amongst the, I guess, the higher portion of the draft community, which if I want to put it one way, a Wi-Fi draft community, I believe has more fans in general than the Showdown community. But in the end, they're still in one community. But if you were to, I guess, put them side by side, then it would be clear that Wi-Fi, I believe, has more viewers in general. And again, that's where if Showdown has more options, then some of those Wi-Fi only viewers may be like, oh, let me see what's on Showdown or what's going on in the Showdown League and see some cool cores. And then they might discover those hidden gems in the Draft League community that only play on Showdown. Because let me tell you guys right now, if you have not been around the Showdown community, there are so many good players that just don't upload because I guess they don't want to, or they don't see the value behind it. I don't know. I wish some of them would, because being able to kind of pick their brain and listen to what they have to say is really interesting. But yeah, I think like in the end, even though yes, it does suck, not every mon is going to be allowed in the Gala decks. It's got its pros, it's got its cons. People are going to be upset, people are going to be happy. That's fine. But something that I feel a lot of people are going to overlook is that, hey, Showdown has everything you want, but it may not be that visually pleasing. But hey, that's a small little sacrifice, and I feel that's a small of enough sacrifice that it will definitely intrigue more people to want to kind of go on Showdown, find Showdown leagues, maybe get more people into the community. We could see amazing new players rising through Gen 8. We could also get more toxic people through Gen 8, or we could just get a better community in general out of Generation 8 when it comes to Draft League stuff. So yeah, I feel like I've touched on everything I kind of wanted to touch on. I feel like I'm forgetting to say something, but I've just been thinking about this stuff for like a week now, and I haven't been able to really sit down and kind of format it into words. So let me know what you guys think about Draft Leagues in Generation 8. I know I made a big deal about Wi-Fi and Showdown being different, and that's because I feel like it personally is, but maybe you don't think it is. Maybe you think it's really all just gonna kind of be the same, nothing's gonna change. I don't know. Let me know in the comment section below, please. And with that being said, if you enjoyed, you can leave a like, you can share this around, or you can dip out and just come back for the next video, which is straight with me. So yeah, later, everybody.
Cause my brain and heart are both tied in a knot, and this hinders me from crying a lot. This causing me to show no emotion. But when I said I cared, I wasn't joking. But I guess it's too late for me to become broken. For now, I'm living with no more pain, tears, or hoping. I'm just coasting. Yeah, I said I'm coasting. No more pain, tears, and hoping. For real.